A booming explosion, a sound that sent a shudder down my spine, erupted from the grenade, causing the entire wall to collapse. Water flooded inside as everyone screamed and scrambled away from the massive hole. The integrity of the ceiling near the gaping hole gave way as part of it crashed down, causing more water to blast in.
Abort. We'll take what we have already.
The scarred man ordered while picking himself up. He and the rest of the gunmen scurried from the room, and it became a free-for-all for the rest of us. Water quickly began to overtake the room as the masses panicked towards the exits. Another ear-shattering explosion, most likely from another grenade, went off from the exit the gunmen took, blasting the patrons who attempted to follow the men. Bodies flew in different directions from the impact, forcing me off my feet and onto the ground. Everything seemed muted as I tried to gather myself back while water rushed into my pants.
Help me!
I turned to where the cry came from and my body stood frozen. A woman on the ground, her right leg was completely blown off as she continued to cry for help. Blood pumped out of the stump, mixing in with the quickly pouring water.
Mercury, help us!
Breaking me from my trance, I turned my head to see Tessa and Louisa attempting to help Dad get on his feet. His chest was still going up and down as he labored to breathe. I rushed over to them to help, putting Dad's arm over my shoulder while Louisa had the other arm on hers.
We gotta get upstairs.
Tessa shouted from behind. People slipped and slid past us as we gingerly made our way out of the banquet hall and into the hallway. More bodies could be seen lying in the growing pool of water, and I did my best to only look ahead. As we walked with Dad in tow, our feet were beginning to slip as the entire ship suddenly began to lean to the right. Water was up to our knees as we stumbled onto the stairwell. We attempted to lift Dad higher to go up the steps, but he let out a bloodied cough.
Let me go.
Ilios, save your strength. We're gonna make it.
Step by step, we took our time going up the stairwell as others blitzed by us. It was going to be a journey to make it to the upper deck, but I was not going to stop. As we inched closer to the top, the cruiser was slowly sinking in the ocean, and the path up the stairwell became more distorted as the ship was turning. We needed to hurry. I turned my head to check on Dad, but he was barely hanging on. From the corner of my eye, I could see a panicked and teary-eyed Dallas close behind us. After what felt like a lifetime, the 5 of us finally made it to the upper deck. Strong winds rushed through us in the dark and cloudy sky as the floor was now almost perpendicular to us. Lightning cascaded the black clouds as thunder created chasms in the atmosphere. Nature's personification of the events unfolding.
There must be an emergency boat somewhere.
Tessa shouted.
Over there.
Louisa's small voice howled as she pointed. We collectively turned our heads to see a few guests boarding a speedboat latched to the side of the sinking cruiser. They were on the other side of the now destroyed pool area.
Go!
Dallas yelled from behind. We hustled over to the speedboat that was quickly filling up with people. Finally arriving, we attempted to hop on as well, but a man immediately stiff-armed me.
We're at capacity.
He barked. I looked behind him to clearly see some space for us to fit.
Let us through. Can't you see we have an injured man?
Back the fuck up!
A woman from behind the man yelled.
There should be another boat on the other side.
The man directed, then pointed his finger.
Try your luck there.
No way. Move.
I yelled as I tried to bully us onto the boat. The man gave me an aggressive shove, causing Louisa and I to lose balance and bump into Tessa. Tessa lost her footing and began slipping towards Dallas, who had his arms around a palm tree for support. She continued slipping before grabbing onto Dallas's leg. He immediately tried to pry her off with his other leg.
Let go of me!
Dallas shouted. Tessa was gripping on for dear life.
Dallas, help me.
Blustering rage twisted Dallas's face.
Get the fuck off me, or we'll both fall!
With one last kick to Tessa's clinging hands, the force pried them from Dallas's leg and she continued falling. Tessa's voice wailed off as she slid. We watched in despair as her body violently crashed spine first into a palm tree, leaving her limp before she careened off the opposite side of the deck. Tears flooded my eyes as we continued to hold up my now unconscious father while gripping onto the side of the speedboat. Dallas yanked on Luis's dress to help him climb up to the side of the boat.
I'm sorry.
The man on the boat whimpered, then turned to another man.
Jones, get us down.
The people on board yanked our hands off the boat. Then another man began working a pulley system to slowly descend them down. Suddenly, the sinking cruiser buckled and the passengers let out shrill gasps and shrieks. The harness affixing the speedboat to the cruiser began to quickly fray, making a zipping sound. Before they could register what was happening, the harness finally snapped and the speedboat plummeted downward. Their screams pierced the air before coming to a screeching halt upon crashing onto the ocean's surface. Hanging for dear life onto the safety rails, I let out a defeated gasp, witnessing bodies and debris float to the surface before they descended into the dark depths. The cruiser was slowly becoming completely vertical, and we were barely hanging on, especially with Dad, as he was. Facing Louisa, I gave her a strained smile, fighting back the pain in my shoulder, holding onto the rail. Louisa returned my hopeless look with a strained smile of her own. My eyes glided to her belly, and a wave of emotions came over me. I would never see the face of my half-brother or sister. That realization sapped whatever strength I had left to hold onto the rail.
Hey!
Before I could let go, a woman's voice broke me from my suicidal spell.
Hey, down here.
Louisa and I turned our heads down the deck to see Kenny's wife wearing a life vest. Below her was a small raft harnessed to the railing.
You're gonna have to slide down here.
She shouted while waving at us to come down. Easier said than done. There was a ginormous swimming pool in between us and Kenny's wife, but if we didn't act soon, there wouldn't be any sliding when the cruiser became completely vertical.
How?
I shouted back. Thunder cracked the sky.
Mercury, listen.
Louisa shouted.
We need to drop your father.
I twisted my head to her.
No, fuck you. I am not dropping Dad.
Louisa blinked twice.
Then my idea will be a little more difficult.
Dallas chimed.
Just say what you gotta say.
Okay, here's what we'll do. We need to swing ourselves to the left and slide to that palm tree over there.
Using her foot, she pointed at the palm tree to her bottom left.
From there, we can slide to the raft.
I looked down towards the tree, and if successful, we could avoid the pool in the middle. If we failed, we would die. The way I saw it, we were dead either way.
We'll swing together on 3.
I agreed, then turned to Dallas.
You heard?
Fuck it. Let's do it.
Dallas also agreed, then used his left hand to wrap around my waist. I began motioning my body from left to right, and Louisa and Dallas followed.
1,
I said, looking towards Louisa.
2,
IL turned my head towards Dallas.
3.
On our last shift left, we let go of the rails and slid down in the direction of the palm tree. Louisa and I still held on to Dad, and I could feel Dallas let go of me as we shifted our weight to avoid the edge of the pool. My heart pounded in exhilaration as we continued our controlled slide closer to our palm tree checkpoint.
Steady.
I shouted. The palm tree was quickly approaching as Louisa and I attempted to position our feet to land on the perpendicular tree. We finally crashed near the base of the tree, and I almost slipped off as I attempted to gather myself.
Almost there.
Catch me.
Looking above was Dallas sliding head first towards us. A reflex that I didn't know existed in me grabbed Dallas's arm before he could slip past us.
Ow, fuck!
I screamed in pain as I felt a tearing sensation in my shoulder. Now grabbing my arm with both hands, Dallas looked up and gave me a frazzled smile.
Thank you.
Ignoring the pain, I looked further down to our right to see our final destination.
Dallas, slide down from here.
He looked down, then swung off my arm to slide down towards the railing where the raft was. Dallas landed comfortably, and it was our turn to join him. Turning to Louisa.
You ready?
Yes.
Before we could position ourselves, our saving grace palm tree ripped from the deck's surface and we toppled down. Losing grip of Dad, I was separated from them. Everything went black. My chest burned with fire as I coughed my lungs out. Water burst from my mouth as I opened my eyes to see the dark clouds striking down lightning. I sat up to see that the 4 of us made it to the life raft, but I was the only one drenched in water. The barely visible moon was our only source of light as our life raft bobbed up and down in the middle of the ocean.
Welcome back to the land of the living.
I turned my head to see Kenny's wife, who was just as wet as me and no longer wearing glasses.
You saved me?
I asked, then coughed out more water.
Please do not thank me.
She said, then a cough came from behind me.
Go be with your father.
I quickly turned my head back to where Louisa was kneeling next to my now conscious father. I crawled to him and held his hand with both of mine.
Daddy, you're okay.
His once strong and spirited eyes looked almost lifeless. I did my best to ignore the bullet holes in his abdomen still pouring out blood. He turned his head to me and cracked a bloodied smile. With my adrenaline taking over, engaging my sobriety, I couldn't help but witness Dad's weakening emerald haze. What was usually strong and viscous was now waning and translucent.
Mercury?
He coughed again.
My love, you have always...
He coughed once more, some blood hitting my face.
You have always made me...
He suddenly stopped talking, eyes now completely devoid of spirit. and his hand went limp in my own.
Dad?
I shook his hand.
Daddy, wake up.
I shook his hand again.
Daddy, wake up, please.
Louisa put her hands over ours.
Mercury, he's gone.
I swiped her hands off of mine and shot her a teary-eyed glare.
Don't touch me! Don't touch him!
Louisa immediately slid towards her end of the raft.
Merc, he's dead.
I spun my head towards Dallas, who wore a stupid puppy dog look on his face as he knelt on his side of the raft.
I don't want to hear a goddamn thing from your mouth. You killed Tessa.
Dallas shot me back a glare of his own.
Don't you dare put that on me.
He spewed.
She would have gotten us both killed if I hadn't shook her off me.
I scoffed.
All that bodybuilding. And for what? You didn't even try to help her, let alone help Dad, you fucking twat.
Oh, fuck off, Merc.
Will you two shut up?
The voice of Kenny's wife took me and seemingly Dallas by surprise, and we immediately ended our spat. Still holding Dad's hand, I opened it and placed it on my cheek. It was a touch I had cherished as a child but felt unnatural as his cold hands kissed my skin. I let go of my father's hand and gently placed it on his lap. Suddenly, my body began to shiver uncontrollably.
I would tell you to take off your clothes to avoid pneumonia, but it would seem like that wouldn't matter now.
The woman said, then opened a floor compartment in the raft. Inside the compartment, there were a dozen water bottles, 4 cans of Spam, 3 paddles, and a portable boat motor. Another crackling roar came from the emerging thunderstorm.
There is only a 1/4 tank of gas left in the motor. We may be able to make it halfway to shore before running out of gas, then we could paddle the rest of the way. However, there is another issue.
Oh, what would that be?
Louisa turned to him.
We may not be able to outrun the impending storm.
Exactly. We would waste precious resources if we attempted to motor to shore, only to be taken way off course by the storm.
I chimed in.
So what would you suggest?
The wife looked at all of us individually, then closed the compartment door.
We are going to weather the storm.
Dallas stood up on his feet, shaking the raft.
That's insane. There's no way this tiny piece of shit could withstand a storm. I say we wing it to the shore right now.
More earth-shattering thunder erupted from the now blackened sky, rain pouring down even harder. It was as if Mother Nature was angry with us for having the gall to test her fury. I looked up toward the dark clouds to see a dance of electricity weave through the sky. We could not outrun this. I turned my head towards the wife.
Let's go with your plan.
I agree.
Louisa backed me up. Dallas gave us both an incredulous look but sat back down in defeat. The boat rocked again, but this time it was caused by a gentle wave. The waves picked up as the roaring winds became even more frequent as we now braced the sides of the raft. Rain bombarded us seemingly from all sides as I did my best to grab my bearings. The moon was completely hidden and we were alone, blind, and bracing for the oncoming storm.
We must keep the boat steady.
The wife shouted through the maelstrom.
Listen carefully and follow my orders.
Our raft suddenly rose as a wave violently picked us up. My stomach lurched and I almost threw up, but I still held on, while also barely holding Dad's body. The waves grew in size and strength as Kenny's wife directed us.
To my left.
She shouted.
Right.
More waves pushing us in all directions.
Lower your center of gravity.
She was the conductor and we were the orchestra as we took her instructions in stride, hopefully creating a symphony of providence. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, helping me focus on her voice as water slapped my face. Endure.
My right. Left. Right.
The raft suddenly jerked in the opposite direction of the wife's orders, causing me to lose my grip of Dad. I immediately let go of the raft and lunged towards my father's body before it could escape. We would have both entered the ocean if not for a hand gripping my pants from behind. Lightning struck and I turned my head to reveal Louisa as my savior. The raft was teetering on the side where Dad's upper half was now in the water.
Mercury, please let him go.
Louisa begged, still anchored to myself and her edge of the raft.
I can't.
I cried out.
You must or we'll all die.
The woman angrily shouted while trying to keep the raft steady. As the raft violently bobbed up and down from the crashing waves, more lightning strikes illuminated the night sky, allowing me to see Dad's face one final time. There was a glint of a smile as his head came up and down from the water. I let out an aching sob as I loosened my grip on Dad's body. Even in death, he seemed happy. I let him go. His body disappeared in a flash and I repositioned myself back onto the raft. Our symphony continued.